as many of you are aware, the news has been pretty bleak recently, in the past 200-300 years. Listen.
In our editorial discussions this morning, we were asked not to show the image from this video.
We're not going to show because of how disturbing it is.
We're only going to show you a clip of this briefly.
All right, that's enough. Let's take it down.
I didn't get to see it at all. This has got to be devastating. That's what was so disturbing and dehumanizing. You wouldn't show it on television. And aren't you the same networks that show reruns of 9/11 every year?
MSNBC and CNN, two networks that many see as standard bearers of liberal media. In an era where the lines between journalism and activism are increasingly blurred, Stewart didn't hold back. His criticism of the biased reporting from these networks was brutal, leaving both MSNBC and CNN scrambling to defend themselves. Jon Stewart's evolution as a relentless critic of the media. Jon Stewart once stood as the unofficial voice of liberal America. As the host of The Daily Show, Stewart became famous for his biting, comedic takedowns of Fox News and right-wing punditry, positioning himself as a champion of left-wing critique. Night after night, Stewart would dismantle conservative media with surgical precision, pointing out the absurdities of Fox News and its blatant ideological bias. His humor and sharp insight made him a beloved figure on the left, but that was then. Fast forward to today, and Jon Stewart's critique of the media landscape has taken a dramatic turn. Now, Stewart is setting his sights on a new target, left-leaning networks like MSNBC and CNN. The media outlets that once had his back are now under his microscope, and Stewart isn't pulling any punches. His critique? The same sensationalism, tribalism, and bias that he once criticized in Fox News has now infected the very media outlets that claim to stand for truth and justice. It's no longer just the right that's guilty of distorting facts and stirring outrage. It's the entire media machine. During a recent episode of his new Apple TV Plus show, The Problem with Jon Stewart, Stewart took direct aim at MSNBC and CNN for what he called their tribalistic approach to news. In a scathing critique, Stewart accused the networks of abandoning objective reporting in favor of narratives that confirm their audience's biases. They're not in the business of informing people anymore, Stewart declared. They're in the business of confirming their viewers' beliefs. For someone who built a career as a left-wing darling, Stewart's takedown of CNN and MSNBC was a seismic shift, a blunt acknowledgement that the media, even on the left, has lost its way. And if the reactions are anything to go by, it's clear Stewart has struck a nerve. Stewart's brutal takedown of CNN's breaking news culture. One of Stewart's sharpest critiques was aimed at CNN's transformation from a serious news network into a purveyor of constant fear and sensationalism. Stewart laid into CNN for its over-reliance on breaking news banners, which he argued have devolved into meaningless noise. Everything can't be breaking news, Stewart quipped with his trademark sarcasm. But if you watch CNN, it seems like the world is ending every 5 minutes. Stewart's point was hard to miss. CNN's obsession with creating constant drama has turned the network into an entertainment channel, rather than a source of real journalism. Gone are the days when CNN prided itself on delivering hard-hitting news. Instead, Stewart argued, the network has fallen into the same trap that has ensnared much of modern media. It's more concerned with keeping viewers glued to the screen than informing them. They're trying to make every story a spectacle, Stewart said, but what gets lost in the spectacle is the truth. Stewart's critique of CNN's 2020 election coverage was particularly scathing. According to Stewart, CNN wasn't focused on reporting the facts. It was focused on building a narrative that would keep viewers watching, regardless of the nuances of the actual story. The network seized on any development that could be spun into a scandal or crisis, even if the facts didn't support the hysteria. They're not reporting the news, Stewart declared. They're selling a product, and the product is fear. MSNBC, a network fueled by bias and tribalism. If Stewart's critique of CNN was biting, his takedown of MSNBC was nothing short of devastating. Stewart accused MSNBC of engaging in the same kind of one-sided, biased reporting that they so often accuse Fox News of doing. And he wasn't afraid to get specific. Stewart pointed to MSNBC's relentless coverage of Donald Trump and the Republican Party, arguing that the network's goal wasn't to inform viewers. It was to demonize the other side. MSNBC has become just as tribal as Fox News, Stewart said, pulling no punches. They're not interested in reporting the truth. They're interested in making sure their audience knows who the bad guys are. Stewart's critique landed hard. While Fox News spends every day portraying Democrats as un-American villains, MSNBC has adopted the same playbook, just with Republicans as the enemy. This, according to Stewart, is poisoning political discourse by presenting everything as a binary battle between good and evil. One of the most damning parts of Stewart's critique was his assessment of how MSNBC's bias shapes political polarization. By constantly framing Republicans as the enemy, Stewart argued, MSNBC has contributed to the extreme polarization of American politics. It's not enough to disagree with Republicans, Stewart said. They have to be monsters. And if you watch MSNBC long enough, you'll start to believe that anyone who votes Republican is a monster. Stewart didn't stop there. He also took MSNBC to task for their obsessive promotion of the Russiagate narrative, which dominated their coverage for years during Donald Trump's presidency. While there were legitimate concerns about Russian interference in the 2016 election, Stewart argued that MSNBC took the story to absurd extremes, pushing a narrative that Trump was essentially a Russian asset without concrete evidence. They wanted it to be true so badly, Stewart said, but when you look at the facts, the story just didn't hold up the way they wanted it to. Social media, amplifying media bias. In a broader critique of today's media landscape, Stewart turned his attention to the role of social media in amplifying bias. According to Stewart, platforms like Twitter and Facebook have created echo chambers where users are fed information that only reinforces their pre-existing beliefs. Social media has made it easier than ever to live in a bubble, Stewart said, and the media is feeding that bubble by giving people exactly what they want to hear. Stewart's point was clear. CNN and MSNBC are just as guilty as Fox News of tailoring their content to fit the preferences of their viewers. It's no longer about presenting the full range of debate. It's about catering to the tribe. Stewart used the example of how CNN and MSNBC covered the COVID-19 pandemic as evidence. Early in the pandemic, there was widespread confusion about masks, vaccines, and the virus itself. But instead of reporting the evolving scientific debate, Stewart argued, the network selectively highlighted experts and opinions that aligned with their preferred narratives. It wasn't about informing people, Stewart said. It was about keeping the audience happy. This, Stewart suggested, is the most insidious aspect of modern media. It's not just the sensationalism or the bias. It's the fact that media outlets have learned to profit from feeding people exactly what they want to hear, even if it means distorting the truth. Who gets to be the good guy? Stewart exposes media's simplistic narratives. One of the most eye-opening parts of Stewart's critique was his takedown of the media's obsession with defining who the good guys and bad guys are in every story. Stewart argued that this kind of simplistic, moralizing coverage isn't just bad journalism. It's dangerous. By turning every issue into a battle between heroes and villains, the media encourages viewers to see the world in black and white terms, rather than engaging with the complexities of the issues. Not every story has a hero and a villain, Stewart said, but that's the way the media presents it, because that's what gets ratings. He explained how CNN, MSNBC, and even Fox News often shape their reporting to fit this narrative framework. focusing less on the facts and more on spinning a story that will engage their audience's emotions. Stewart's criticism was particularly sharp when it came to issues like climate change, social justice, and economic inequality. While these are undeniably important topics, Stewart argued that the network's coverage often devolves into simplistic narratives that pit one side as the righteous defenders of truth and the other as corrupt, ignorant villains. "The media isn't supposed to tell you who the good guys and bad guys are," Stewart said. "They're supposed to give you the facts and let you make up your own mind." Stewart's larger critique of cable news. Perhaps the most significant takeaway from Stewart's evolution as a media critic is that his criticism isn't limited to CNN or MSNBC. It's a broader critique of the entire cable news industry, which he argues has become a machine for creating outrage, fear, and division. All the major networks, Fox News, CNN, and MSNBC, are guilty of the same sin. They've abandoned their mission of informing the public in favor of keeping viewers angry and scared. "Cable news isn't about the truth anymore," Stewart said. "It's about keeping people angry and scared so they'll keep watching." He went on to explain how the constant stream of outrage and crisis reporting is designed to hook viewers, but it comes at the expense of real journalism. They're not informing people. They're keeping them in a state of perpetual fear and anger. According to Stewart, CNN and MSNBC have become so focused on attacking their political opponents that they've lost sight of their role as neutral observers. "They've become part of the political game," Stewart said. "They're not watching from the sidelines anymore. They're playing the game." The media pushback, how MSNBC and CNN reacted to Stewart's critique. It didn't take long for the media to react to Stewart's scathing takedown. Hosts and commentators at MSNBC and CNN were quick to defend their networks, accusing Stewart of oversimplifying the issue or buying into right-wing talking points. Some went so far as to accuse Stewart of having a both sides mentality, suggesting that he was unfairly equating the bias of MSNBC and CNN with the more overtly partisan bias of Fox News. But Stewart didn't back down. In follow-up interviews and appearances, he made it clear that his criticism wasn't about defending Fox News. It was about holding all media outlets accountable for their role in shaping public perception. "I am not saying Fox is innocent," Stewart said, "but that doesn't mean CNN and MSNBC get a free pass. They're all guilty of putting ratings above the truth." Jon Stewart's uncompromising critique of modern media. Jon Stewart's fearless critique of MSNBC and CNN has sent shockwaves through the media world. As someone who once stood firmly on the left, Stewart's willingness to call out the biases and sensationalism of liberal-leaning networks is a powerful reminder that no media outlet is above scrutiny. In an era where news networks have become more focused on entertainment and outrage than on providing objective, balanced reporting, Stewart's takedown is a wake-up call. His message is clear. The media, regardless of political affiliation, has a responsibility to report the facts, not just cater to their audience's beliefs. And if they continue down this path of sensationalism and tribalism, they risk losing the very credibility they once had. If you agree that it's time for the media to return to honest journalism, hit that like button, share this video, and don't forget to subscribe for more content. Let's keep the conversation going. What do you think about Jon Stewart's takedown of CNN and MSNBC? Let's have a real discussion about where this movement is headed.